the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Ault. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we will hear selections from Special Illumination, the Sufi Use of Humour, by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Obsession. Jokes are used as correctives to help people who adopt, for instance, single-minded attitudes which prevent their further understanding. Sufi study is graded so that once an objective is reached, it has to be forgotten, while concentration is directed to the next objective. One neat reminder of this one is about the prayer beats. Someone studying to be a Sufi once read that if you make all your concerns one concern, you will achieve your desire. This man wanted, more than anything else, to be reincarnated. He spent many years telling beads and concentrating upon reincarnation. They do say, though I cannot vouch for it, that he did come back after he died, as a rosary. What happens to people who do not learn from Sufi jokes? Those, for example, who think that they appreciate them, but only do so because others have insisted that these tales are important or have inner significances. We must follow a Sufi observer on a long trip, while he sees what happens to the literalists. A precedent. A famous and greatly respected fakir presented himself at the gates of heaven to find them closed, with only a single angel on guard. When he was asked his name, the fakir felt that deeds were better than words. He went through his whole repertoire. First he made things appear and disappear, then he blew fire from his mouth. Next he materialized a whole assembly of 80,000 disciples from his earthly life. Finally he aimed a burst of special power at the angel, the type reserved for really convincing people on earth of his holy marvelousness. "All right," said the angel. "I'll open the door, but I don't think, somehow, that you're going to like it in there." On another occasion, we are told, someone who specialized in organizing Sufi knowledge into an academic form also died. Honor where honor is due. A whole band of Sufis were being admitted to heaven, and the doors swung open just enough to let each one in. As soon as he was in, without any ceremony, the doors closed, and then opened for the next, who went in without any hesitation, as if he was quite expecting to be admitted. Right at the end came a scholar, with a reverend beard and a majestic gait, large turban and confident look. As he stepped forward, the gates swung open, and trumpets sounded, while tremendous applause broke out from an assembled multitude. A shining figure came forward to escort him within. "This is most gratifying," said the scholar to himself, "to know that the learned no longer will have to give themselves airs and graces. Here at least our importance is recognized." To the apparition he said, "Why all this ceremony?" "Well," said the angel, "it is something of an occasion. You see, this is the first time that we have had an academic among us." The reality. It is quite possible that the academic Sufi was also the one about whom the next story is told. Its mystical master seems to have less awareness of what is really going on than the man who came to learn from him. When you see the masses of polite and stereotyped people interested in spiritual studies here in the West, and the readiness with which they are accepted by their spiritual masters, it is a great contrast to the way things are with many schools in the East. There it is generally considered an honor and a rarity to be admitted as a disciple. In fact, there is a well-known story about it, which may have less currency here. The difficulty. There is one teacher who only accepts a single student every 3 years, and it is related that when he indicated that he was willing to interview applicants, there was only one applicant. "Very good," he said. "I will accept you on probation, but you should not overdo the austerities. I do not require my pupils to be so covered in mud and ashes, with clothes torn to ribbons and lacerated faces." "Then," said the successful applicant, "you wouldn't have wanted any of the 300 other applicants I had to fight to stay in the running. They were all in a very shocking condition." A man who had once been an obtuse disciple of the type so often complained about, and who later became a Sufi, told me how he had escaped from circular thinking by seeing the structure of this joke. Cause and effect. A man sent an advertisement to his local newspaper offering a reward of 1,000 gold pieces for the finder of his pet bird, which had escaped. When publication day arrived, the paper did not come out. He telephoned the office to find out why, and was answered by the cleaning woman. "I'm sorry, there's nobody here to talk to you," she said, "because everyone is out looking for your bird." This tale can also be used to illustrate the kind of situation which arises when everyone tries to pursue his or her personal interest in the quest for higher knowledge, forgetting that there is an essential need to maintain the community through which this awareness is in fact communicated. In case this last emphasis sets too many people off forming their own metaphysical groups and, as will always happen without proper understanding, simply forming circuses, it should be restated that random groups are not Sufi ones at all. The caution which I have just shown in not provoking reckless and ill-informed activity might be reflected in another story. This putatively concerns a discussion between a dervish writing a book for circulation in the West, which showed the manuscript to a certain knowledgeable Sufi. Export model. Dervish: "What did you think of the book written for the people of the West?" Sufi: "Perfectly balanced." Dervish: "In what way?" Sufi: "If it had been on any higher level, they wouldn't have understood it. But if it had been any lower, anyone would have been ashamed of it." I know what he meant, but so too do quite a lot of people both in the East and West, for no culture has a monopoly of almost hopeless learners. Still, one needs fortitude to continue in this area in the West, since Sufis are still often viewed as oddities and not, as in the East, recognizable as established mentors when they are genuine. This Western joke shows that people in their culture, too, find it unprofitable to try to inform others who really should get rid of their hang-ups first. Please yourself. Could you tell me the time?" "Certainly, it is 3 o'clock." "But it can't be later than 2:30. "All right then, please yourself." I have heard a Jewish joke too, which was once tacked on to this one. Consequences. Someone asked the man with the watch why he did not insist that the time was really what he knew it was. "If I had told him the right time, he would have talked some more. Then I'd have taken him home, and he might have wanted to marry my daughter. How could I marry my daughter to a man who sits in cafes at 3 in the afternoon? So I told him something which would stop him talking." The Sufi might say that the man with the watch in the first joke was simply trying to stress the other man's looseness of thinking, the tendency in everyone to dispute something because it is not comfortable to accept it. In the second joke, he would find an intimation that although people may act irrationally, there is usually a deep rationality, or rationale, in what they say or do. This is the operation of the commanding self, which Sufi teaching and activity is designed to identify and outwit. In jokes, as much as in anything, we see the differences between the Sufi procedures and those of other persuasions powerfully illustrated. Someone once tried to make a humorous statement about this. The difference. It has been said that the difference between the Sufi and the ordinary man is that the one is aware of what is really important, and the other usually unaware, even of trifles, which are useful at the time. The Sufi, they say, pursuing the thesis by the shock method, may be a man who, joining the army, might save the lives of everyone in the regiment by shooting the cook. Sufism is very much exclusion as well as inclusion. But in the same military situation, the disciple is one who stays up until 3 a.m. wondering what he has forgotten, until he remembers that it was that he had to go to bed early. This podcast is copyright 2018, the Idries Shah Foundation.